The DJI OSMO Pocket 3 is honestly the best small camera you can buy at the moment. And with all the hype around it, well, I got influenced. So in this video, I'll walk you through the settings that I personally use to get the best image quality out of the Pocket 3. But before we get into what settings to change, you first need to make sure that you're in video mode on the Pocket 3. You'll know you're in video mode if you can see a video camera icon at the left bottom corner. And if you're not, you can tap on the icon to swipe to video. You're also going to want to set your video resolution and frame rate. And you can swipe up to change that. I personally shoot everything at 4K 24 frames per second, so that's what I've set. As long as you're shooting in 4K, you can set the video resolution to whatever you want, depending on how you shoot. Alright, so to get the best image quality out of the Pocket 3, there are a few important settings that you need to change. By default, the camera will be in full auto, adjusting the shutter speed and ISO automatically. And that's alright if you're starting out and don't want to mess around with settings, but you can get a much better image if you set your settings manually. And because DJI really thought it through, these are settings that you can set and forget. And I'll also show you later in the video how I've saved settings for different shooting scenarios that I film in to quickly access them when I need to. And to change these settings, you're going to want to swipe from the right side of the screen and tap on the Pro icon. And that will open up the manual settings that you can change. And next to the Pro icon, you'll also see an exposure and microphone icons. We'll deal with the mic settings later, so let's first start with the exposure settings. So next, tap on exposure and set your shutter speed to 2 times the frame rate that you selected earlier. Since mine was 24 frames per second, I'll set my shutter speed to 1/50th of a second. Then on the right, set your ISO to 50 to 400. And this is why I said earlier that DJI really thought it through. Because by letting you set an ISO range, it saves you from having to change your ISO all the time. So even though you're basically using auto ISO, it won't go past 400 since higher ISOs can cause noise that degrades the image. So confirm that, and then let's move on to white balance. And with white balance, if you film indoors in controlled lighting scenarios like with studio lights, set your white balance to the color temperature of your lights. Mine is 5600 Kelvin, so that's what I'll set it to. But if you film outside or in different shooting scenarios, I find that auto white balance works really well on DJI cameras, so you can comfortably use that. Oh, and make sure glamour effect is turned off. You don't really need that. Then in color, set it to D-Log M 10-bit, because in order to get the most dynamic range, you need to shoot in log. It may look gray and desaturated on the screen, but trust me, it'll come back to life after we color grade. Next, leave focus mode on continuous and head into image adjustment. Select custom and set both sharpness and noise reduction to -2. This will remove the digital sharpening and smoothing that makes the footage look like it was shot on a smartphone. And with that, we're done with the exposure settings. So next we'll head into the microphone tab and we'll leave everything else as it is and turn off wind noise reduction. Because like me, if you'll be using the DJI mic or a wireless microphone to record all your dialogue, you might as well use the wind muffs that come with it. It will always be better than any digital noise reduction that might degrade the audio. Alright, so now that you set all the shooting and exposure settings manually, there's one more important step. Swipe down into the menu and tap on the profile icon, and then you can save your settings to C1. This way, if you change anything later or mess something up, you can come back into profile and set it back to how you want them. And this is also where if you film in multiple scenarios like in studio and outside, you can set a custom white balance to C1 and auto white balance to C2. Or set 24 frames per second to C1 and 60 frames per second to C2 if you sometimes like to film in slow motion. And to quickly select which custom profile you want to use, tap on the video icon on the bottom left corner and swipe until you see the custom profile you want to use. If you don't know already, the Pocket 3 has really great autofocus and tracking capabilities. In fact, I'm using that now and it's tracking me perfectly. But you need to know how to use it and how to turn it on. First things first, face tracking in selfie mode is turned off by default for some reason, so we definitely need to turn that on. That way, when you press the joystick 3 times and the camera points towards you in selfie mode, it'll automatically detect and track your face, which is very useful if you intend to vlog with the Pocket 3. But mind you, this only works in selfie mode, so if you want to track someone behind the camera, you're going to have to use some of the other tracking modes. And that brings us to face auto detect and dynamic framing, which is actually what I'm using now. To select either one of these tracking modes, tap on the icon on the middle left, between the SD and video icons. This is also where you can find spin shot, by the way. And if you don't know what that is, that's when you can point the camera to something and have it spin the gimbal around to get a unique perspective. So the first one here is face auto detect, which when enabled will automatically detect and track the face in the middle of the frame. Very useful if you intend to film or track faces when not in selfie mode. I could think of a few scenarios like when you're vlogging with someone else. And then there's dynamic framing, which in my opinion is the best tracking mode on the Pocket 3 because it allows you to select which part of the frame you want your subject to be and you can track anything with it, not just faces. Like right now, I have it tracking my face and positioned at the top middle part of the frame. And it works great, even when I move around. I think the perfect scenario for dynamic tracking is if you're filming a talking head like this and want your face to remain at the top center of the screen. Or if you're tracking a product and want it to remain dead center. You can also simply track whatever subject you're pointing at by double tapping on the screen or in the mobile app by swiping along to frame the subject. Alright, so I usually make it a point to not ask you to like and subscribe, but the truth is, engagement on these videos is what helps YouTube to recommend it to other people that might be interested in the topic. So if you've watched to this point, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video and left something in the comments, whether it's a question that you have or something that you might be interested to see about the Pocket 3. And I read all the comments, so I'll definitely get back to you. And if you enjoyed this video, you might also want to check out my DJI mic mini video right here. Unless maybe you prefer this one. Thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, peace.